We're Eddie and Sue Arthur.
He's Eddie.
And that's Sue. And we work with Wycliffe Bible Translators. We are sent mission partners from above bar, and we have been since the mid-1980s. So Sue, what is it you do?
My official title is Translation Consultant. What do you do?
I've got the weird job title of Theologian Researcher. So, Translation Consultant sounds rather grand. Could you put it in some sort of context and explain how Bible translation happens and what it is that you do as part of that process?
Okay. So I work mainly with the Tandrui team in Madagascar, and they're a group of church leaders from the Tandrui area in the south of Madagascar, and they're working together to translate the Bible into their language. And so basically they work together on the translation and get it as good as they can, and then I come alongside to help the team to check the translation for accuracy, to compare it with the original Greek and to see if anything might be missing or anything that's not quite right, and we communicate via French to do that. So sometimes that's in person on a visit to Madagascar, and sometimes that's working online.
So we've never actually lived in Madagascar.
Well spotted.
So what is it about your background and your experience that allows you to work with a team in a part of the world that you've never lived in?
Right, so when we were living in Ivory Coast, I was working with I was part of we both were part of the translation team, and so that background has helped a lot. And I've also done some study, did a master's in biblical interpretation, and I've worked on learning some biblical Hebrew and Greek as well, so that I can have a greater understanding and be able to get alongside the teams to be able to check their translation for accuracy.
Excellent.
And what about you? What does it mean day to day being a theologian researcher?
Theologian researcher. Basically it means I stare at a laptop all day and really hope that something happens. I write, but I do research looking at mission and looking at mission, how mission has changed. My particular interest and expertise really is in British mission agencies, organisations like Wycliffe, like OMF and others that you'll have heard of, and looking at how they work, how their finances operate, and basically doing basic research into these organisations and then advising them and helping them and writing articles that will help them in the future.
And how do you think your experience so far in Wycliffe, what you've already done, helps you in that?
Well, as you mentioned, we started off together working as translators, but very shortly after that I was asked to go into a leadership position in the capital, and you carried on the translation without me and have continued to do that. But I've occupied a number of different leadership positions and advisory positions, first of all in Africa and then in Europe, including a time as the CEO of Wycliffe in the UK. So, and then I've, again, like yourself, I've done formal studies. I did a PhD looking at the interaction between the publicity and the theology and practices of British mission agencies. So I've got that experience of having been part of a mission agency, part of the leadership, and then a background in an academic background that allows me to take a view from the outside so that I can see how things are working as a whole. But, okay, from your point of view, why is what you do, why is Bible translation important? Why is it important to have a translation consultant doing what it is you do?
Okay, well, why is it important to have a consultant? We're not just translating anything, we're working on God's word. So it's really important that we do all the possible checks that we can to make sure that the translation is as accurate and as clear as possible. And I can't imagine being a Christian, and not having God's word in a language that I can understand. And it certainly would be so difficult to plant a church or to disciple people without having the Bible in language that they can understand. And what about your work? How is that strategic?
Well, what I do isn't as I'm not on the chalk face of mission in the way that you are. I don't see the dramatic, the people reading the scriptures for the first time in their own language and that sort of excitement. But I'm at a step back. But I think what I do is important because over the last 50 years, really, the church worldwide has been transformed. A term that is often used is that the centre of gravity of the church has shifted. The church used to be basically in Europe, North America, and the European diaspora. Today, the vast majority of Christians are in Africa, Latin America, and Asia. The places that were once mission fields, as we called them, are now the centre of the church. And places like the UK, which used to be the centre of the church, are seeing the church declining. So that has massive implications for mission and for the organisations that are involved in mission. We don't know what the future is going to be, but we do know the future is not going to be what we have now. And my role is to help mission agencies think things through, not to provide answers, but to get them asking the questions so they can develop the answers for themselves. Because the future is going to be different, and we've got to be getting prepared for that. One last question. What is the role of Above Bar Church in what we do?
Well, as you mentioned, Above Bar originally sent us out in the 80s when we first went to Africa. And over all these years, Above Bar has been supporting us financially, praying for us, caring for us, and we're very grateful.
Yeah, thank you so very, very much.